Hey guys, what's up? Today we're going to be talking about how we can use React context along with Zustand. And the reason you might want to do this is because sometimes uh, there's a use case where you want to uh, encapsulate the Zustand store within a context, and every time that component gets destroyed, you want the Zustand store to reset it. You can do this with having a reset method, but there's a better way to do it if you basically integrate the Zustand with context. All right, so let's get started. Uh, so let's create a component. So let's create a store first, a Zustand store. I'm going to be taking an example of a simple form with first name, last name, and email. So let's create that. Const use form store, my bad, create Zustand, have this first name, last name, let's go with the email. Let's have just one function to set the whole state. So let's call this set state. Yeah, I think this is crying because the type is not mentioned. So let's create a type. Let's export from here as well. Form state, have it this way. Cool. Let's apply the types to the store as well. Why it should be that way, no? Oh no, this was required. Cool. So let's apply the form state type to this particular store. Cool. So let's use that store in here. Okay. So let's create a new component and call it form.tsx. Let's call it form, export it. Let's have a normal view just for now. Cool. Let's have some sort of a text in here as well, my bad. Let's call it form data React Native. Cool. And all right, so now that we have these two components, I want to be able to navigate between these two, but I'm not gonna use any navigation library. Instead, what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna use Zustand itself to basically maintain the current route. I know this is sort of a bad way, but for this video I'm just gonna do that. Let's have a use global store. Yeah, current route, let's call it set current route. Let's have a type for this. Okay, this is not going to be just any string. I'm gonna use literals here. Let's call the second one as that. Let's apply the type to the store as well. Global state, this must cry because this is string. All right, so let's have this as another type, route. Let's apply it like this, and cool. So now that we have a global store in here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove this from here. I'm gonna, not this, I'm gonna do current current route, set current route. It's not form store, it's a global store itself. And all right, so let's current route equals to home. I want to do this, or else I want to render the form. Let's import. Why is this crying in here? Why is this crying though? Oh, I don't need these right now. All right, so what basically I have done here is, if the current route is home, I just want to render this piece, or else I want to render the form component. Cool. So let's also have a button in here. Let's have a button, go to form, right? So if I click on this button, all right, cool. All right, so now that we have a form component, let's have those input fields. Text input, placeholder, actually first name, last name, and email. Cool. Let's give some styling to this. Styles, style sheet, this dot create, just container, okay. Let's apply the style to this, style dot container. All right, so now that we have this one in middle, let's apply some styling to the inputs as well. All right, these seems pretty good. Let's apply them here. Styles dot input. Let's copy them over. Cool. Let's also have a heading in here. Let's have some font size of 20, weight bold. Let's see how this looks by doing the start. Heading, let's also make it italic. What's such a font style? Italic. Cool. Cool. All right, we have the form component. Now let's attach the store to this. First name, set, I guess state is the one, right? Cool. Cool. Let's not call it state, let's call it set form state, I guess. That makes more sense. Let's also do the state here. All right, so now that we have our state, let's value, first name, value last name, email. Set the value. Let's also attach the onChange text handler. Why is this crying? Argument of type string is not assignable to form state. What is the data type here that it takes? Acha, this should be partial, no? Partial basically means that it can take like the partial of all these values. So let's just call this one state, and let's have another type called this. Yeah, so this will basically take all the values that is from here, and it will also add. All right, cool. I think now it should work, right? Argument of type, this is not assignable to the parameter of type form. What is happening here exactly? Again, it was missing the partial from here. Cool, I think, yeah, cool. So let's have the same thing in both the other places as well, with slight change. Last name, email. Cool, that's it. Right, let's go to the form. Also let's have basically a go back button to the home page in here itself. Button, yeah, let's have a submit button here, but instead of console.log I want to navigate back to the home page. All right, set current route to home. Cool, no need for the current route value in here. All right, so let's go back, let's go to the form, let's put some values, let's say path, and if I submit it and I come back to the form, you see the value is still there, but in our use case we want to reset the value of the form data. Now to do this, you can also have a reset button, reset function here. We can just call it reset function, and we can just call that function every time before rerouting it. But if you have a lot of components where every time you are rerouting it you have to reset the data, that basically becomes an extra step, and you can also sometimes forget to do it. So there is a better way, and even a recommended way by Zustand itself, and that is basically to use React context with it, and I'll show you how we can do that. All right, I'll drop the link to this in the description as well, so you guys can go and see it. So here all we have to do is basically we have to create a regular Zustand store. We can have init props, the default props, all that basic stuff, and then we'll create a React context and its provider, and we'll provide the store like this. We are using useRef here because every time this app re-renders, we don't want it to create a new Zustand stores. So once we have provided the store, we can use the use context hook to get the store. We'll check if the store is even provided in any of its parent component. If not, then we'll throw this error, and we can use the store values like this. Now there is a better way to do this, because there seems to be a lot of dry code in here. So yeah, we'll see how we can do it in a better way as well. Okay, cool. Let me just copy all this stuff. I'll replace with my code. All right, let's create a context.tsx file. We'll copy all this. Cool. Now let me rename this to form.props. Let's rename this to, also if you want to know how I'm changing the variable name in all the places, basically there is something called as rename symbols. You can go and find it in your VS Code keyboard shortcuts. I think initially it is set to F2, but I have a custom setting, so you can also do that. Cool. Let's rename this to create form store. Let's also export it. Cool. And let's have this all in the context itself. We want this in the form props and this in the form state. Cool. Let's call this props. Cool. And all this in the default values. Cool. So okay, now that we have a create form store, I'll create this thing. I'll create the, we're calling this form store now. Why did it not change? Okay, that's weird. Cool. Now that we have the context in here, we can use the store. We can use the store in here. We can actually create the store in here, but then actually it won't work, because you see the way we have implemented our navigation is this particular component will never be destroyed. And so if I do this thing in here, and even if I go to the form component and come back, this particular context will not be reset because this component still exists. So to solve for this, I'm going to create a form wrapper component just to provide the context. Cool. Let's form a wrapper component. All right, so we have a use ref. It should be create form store. Create form store. Then I'm gonna return form context dot provider. Let's import this. Why is it not coming in the options though? Oh, it's not renamed. Now, yeah, cool. And inside of this, I'm gonna render the form component. Cool. Now that we have this, yeah, let's do it like this. Cool. Okay, so now that we have wrapped the provider on top of the form, which is basically a consumer here right now, let's do all this. So instead of doing this, all inside the form component, I'm going to create a new hook called use form context. And yeah, and that will handle all that stuff. So let's create a use form. Let's say let's call it use form store itself. And what are we doing essentially here? We are calling, okay, store use context form context. And if the store itself is not provided, then raise this error form context. Yeah, and instead of doing all this, instead of getting values one by one, I'm just going to use the use store hook by Zustand itself. This will basically allow you to use the use form store just like how you use any global Zustand store. So right now we were using a global one, right? And also let's put this one inside the stores file. And yeah, so we'll get that from the store itself. And now you see there are no errors, because that is basically returning the same thing that that any Zustand store returns. So cool. Now that we have integrated the context with the Zustand, let's check this piece. If I submit it and I go back to the form, now you see the value doesn't exist here anymore, because the form component was destroyed. The Zustand store also got resetted. So yeah, that was it for this video. Thank you for watching.